Welcome back to the Blood Bear channel. In this video, we will be reading and discussing Genesis chapter 8 is the one that I think we're on. So that's the one I wrote the script about, so hopefully I'm right. As always, I do read from the NIV version of the Bible, and I implore you to go read whatever version you want for yourself, and to make your own conclusions about it, and see whether or not, if you're a non-believer, see whether or not you think it's true based on what it says. Anyways, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and start reading this chapter here. All right, this is Genesis chapter 8 again, verse 1. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth at the end of the 150 days. The water had gone down, and on the 17th day of the 7th month the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month the tops of the mountains became visible. After 40 days Noah opened a window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven, and it kept flying back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had receded from the surface of the ground, but the dove could find nowhere to perch because there was water all over the surface of the earth, so it returned to Noah in the ark. He reached out his hand and took the dove and brought it back to himself in the ark. He waited 7 more days and again sent out the dove from the ark. When the dove returned to him in the evening, there in its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then Noah knew that the water had receded from the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again. But this time it did not return to him. By the first day of the first month of Noah's 601st year, the water had dried up from the earth. Noah then removed the covering from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was completely dry. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." So Noah came out together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives. All the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground, and all the birds, everything that moves on land, came out of the ark, one kind after another. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. Then the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease." And that's the end of that chapter. So, now we're getting into my thoughts on it. Anyways, this chapter is basically about the aftermath of the flood. It's kind of the tail end of the flood, and then God's promise to Noah, or I guess he hasn't necessarily promised it to Noah yet. He says it in his heart. It says, right. So we know he'll never do it because he's just and true. At least that's what his character implies. So yeah, a lot of this stuff I've already kind of discussed in the earlier chapters involving the flood, like where the suspected resting place of the ark is, and then the waters, like sources on the earth, and how there's enough water on the earth, if you take into account the water that's underground, to actually flood the entire planet, including Mount Everest, which I think recently there was they took a chunk out of like a very high point in Mount Everest, and there was like there was like seashells or whatever in it. So there's that as well, and of course that's where like the seashells would be, because that's also where that would be like where the bottom of the ocean is, so that's where all the crawlies down there would be. Anyways, in this chapter we really get to see a lot of more of God's character, basically, so like who he is as a personal being, and we see because earlier we saw him being just, because all the wicked humans committing these sins, he finally decided, because it was basically everyone. Noah was, and they all stopped believing in God as well, so, and stopped following his I would say commands, I guess, although we haven't gotten the 10 Commandments yet, so I don't know if that really tracks. But they weren't following God, or really like listening to him, or they weren't trying to form a relationship with him or anything like that. So, except for Noah and his family, so that's why Noah and his family were spared, whereas God then killed everyone else on the planet because of their sins. Which any sin is punishable by death. So he killed all of them. And then, but with the flood, obviously, and then, but after that, we get to see his mercy in this chapter here, where we get to see him we get to see God promise in his heart that he will never again flood the earth, even though humans are evil. Even since the human heart is evil and is inclined to do evil, he will never flood the earth again, never kill all those people again. Him showing mercy to us. So he knows that we will basically kind of get to that same point where we're all being sinners and deserve death. And he knows that we'll get to that point again, but he's still promising not to kill everyone, even like he did with Noah's Ark here, with this whole flood story. So we get to see his mercy, basically, and he gives us his grace and stuff, which is very nice. I don't know if this is the next chapter, but because I know the symbol of that promise is supposed to, that he makes with Noah. So I think the covenant of Noah is in the next one. So I might reiterate this in that next video, in Genesis chapter 9 video that I make. But I know he promises that it's when he makes a covenant with Noah, like the symbol of that promise is the rainbow. So I don't know what to do with that one. So so I might talk about that again in the next video, because I don't think that came up here. And I know it does come up. I think I'm pretty sure it does. Anyways, there's also another thing because I know that there's some sort of like symbolism or metaphor with the raven and the dove, and I looked into it, and it was pretty interesting. But I honestly I don't know how to properly like explain it, because I saw like multiple like different takes on what that represents. Like one was saying that the raven kind of represented evil and Satan, whereas the dove represented like peace and goodness, because it brought back, and like sits with like the olive branch, olive leaf that it brought back, because the olive tree represents like a time of peace or whatever. I don't know that stuff, but it's interesting. So I do implore you to go and do your own kind of research on that one, because it's quite interesting, and that symbolism actually is still relevant today. The raven is supposed to represent like evil, because it's like a Karen bird, or is Karen, because it feeds on the dead, right? It feeds on the dead, so it's like seen as kind of more like an evil one, whereas doves don't do that, and doves are known for their beauty and purity, I believe, is what they kind of represent. Anyways, they're both, in my opinion, they're both pretty cool birds, to be honest. So yeah, especially if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you know, you have the the Night's Watch, and they use like the ravens, you know, those are their messenger birds. But then also in the book that I just finished, there's a group called the Raven Feeders, and they're actually kind of the evil group. So what do I know, right? But yeah, anyways, enough of that tangent. That's going to be the end of this video. So yeah, I guess I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.